This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in everybody to this week's episode of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John McAroon. Boy, is it a fun time to break down college football, to break down the NFL. It's a wonderful, wonderful time of the year. So much happened in the world of sports. It's crazy. And there's no other person I'd rather break it all down with than my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. So you got a choice to make, cuz. Do you want to talk about Michigan getting thrashed by Texas to open the show? Or do you want to talk about the emerging program in the Big Ten, and that being the Michigan State Spartans, who went on the road? Many people thought that they would get blown out, get trucked by Maryland. They held their own. Defense travels. Where do you want to start? Because I'm excited to talk either way, as you can tell.
Let's start with Michigan State, because with Michigan, I've got some thoughts, and I just kind of want to push those a little bit deeper into the show, because I watched both games this weekend, and what I seen from Michigan State was pretty awesome, to be factual with you here. I was impressed how much this team grew in 1 week. Offensively, last week, this team looked like they couldn't move the ball down the field. They looked like they had trouble running the ball. They looked like they had trouble pretty much doing everything that you had to do on offense. The offensive line did not look very good. This game was different. This team was able to move the ball. This team was able to complete passes downfield. The offensive line looked good. They were able to run the ball. They went on the road to a team against Maryland who is very good, and they were able to handle their business. The whole point of this game was to, by some way, somehow eke out a win, figure it out. And at certain points, Michigan State controlled this game. At certain points, Michigan State controlled the tempo, they controlled the momentum, and it wasn't that they just eked out a win. They won this game. They put themselves in a position where they were able to kick a game-winning field goal and run off the field. To me, what you have here with Michigan State is you are starting to see the development of a program. Yes, last week was rough, and this might be a little bit of an overreaction, but I have been completely impressed with Jonathan Smith as the head coach of Michigan State, and I was impressed to see how much growth and how much development happened over the course of 1 week. And that's what really stood out to me. That's the one thing I take away from this game. Going on the road, going to Maryland, it's tough. New head coach. That's a new type of environment for this team because, again, this is the first time you've had to go on the road this year underneath this head coach. So a lot of things at play here, and you got to see Aiden Childs basically grow up. He delivered for you. Defensively, we talked about it last week. I think this team is going to be nasty, and I think this team is going to be problems. That's a very good Maryland offense. And this team was able to contain them and help flip the field and give Michigan State's offense a chance to go out there and win the game. That's exactly what they did. To me, the growth and development of this team over the course of 1 week was immense and was awesome to see. I thought it was fantastic. I know you were excited. I know this was a big deal for you. It was a very good weekend for you. Michigan lost. Michigan State won. Lions handled their business. We're going to talk about the Lions back into the show. But what really stood out to you from this Michigan State victory?
No doubt an emerging potential star in first-year player Nick Marsh. I thought that his touchdown was legit. You see a player that many people thought could do something in this offense, and to develop some chemistry with Aiden Childs, who we'll talk about here in just a moment. Look, Aiden Childs is raw. And so you have a quarterback that many people believe, okay, if he can develop and stay at Michigan State, hopefully doesn't get lured away in the portal by big dollars somewhere else. Look, this is a mobile quarterback that's athletic, and I think that's probably the smartest move that Jonathan Smith made is, hey, take a quarterback that you're very familiar with that can at least start to help you move forward. And that's something that we'll talk about with Michigan, I think that they've got a real problem in that if you don't have a quarterback that can lead your team when you go up against stiffer competition, it's going to make your football team look really inept. And for Michigan State, look, he's young, and I think he's got to clean up the interceptions. Clearly 3 interceptions matched with 3 touchdowns. So he made mistakes. He made throws that typically, at that level you're not supposed to make. But at certain points, there's going to be growing pains. But when you have the athleticism, it's just, to me, that's where all of the desires that people have in the NFL, to be able to move your feet and move the pocket gives you so much of an advantage. And Jonathan Smith's offense, when you have the ability to run the football with the talent that they have, it's a good starting point. Now, collectively, I think against bigger dogs, against the bigger opponents that's going to be on their schedule, clearly you're going to struggle against Ohio State. You're going to struggle against opponents that are a little bit physically that can outmatch Michigan State at the moment. But this is a good start, 2-0, especially, look, if you're Michigan State, when you go and you have your first Big Ten conference game and you win it, it sets the tone and it's really good. Now it's on to Prairie View, and you hope that, definitely don't rest on your laurels, but starting off 3-0 is good. I'll be in attendance for Michigan State versus Ohio State at the end of the month, so that will be good. But look, Nick Marsh burst onto the scene, freshman of the week, Big Ten player that got some accolades, and you have an opportunity to say, okay, this is a guy that you can circle along with the running backs. Okay, offensively, if you can take the next step forward, and look, man, that defense is legit. I like their defense. I like what their defense can do, and that will at least, and that's kind of where I think the frustration lies with Michigan. You can lose games. Like, the whole world knew you were going to lose to Texas, but when your staple is defense and it doesn't perform well, it can get really ugly real fast. Michigan State's defense, I think, can be consistent, whereas I think on the other side, Michigan's defense really had a big major letdown, a lot of breaks, a lot of busted coverages, a lot of miscommunication. And look, I'll save it for a few minutes here, but I don't think that Michigan should be beat up as much as they are, because I'll share from a firsthand perspective what I saw, and it was crazy to see. But for Michigan State, I think they move forward, and I do think it's a good selling point that Jonathan Smith, I had a bold statement here. It was funny. I said that, I was going to tweet it, but I said, because it's coming from the State guy, it's going to be inauthentic, but it was funny. My bold take, had I fired it off, was going to be, is Jonathan Smith, is he getting his players to buy in more than Sherrone Moore's? But to that point, I'll say this. Michigan State is united. They're going to play consistently as much as possible, and I think they're going to start. If this is year one, what they're doing, I think it's going to be very special when you look ahead, when Jonathan Smith actually gets 2 or 3 recruiting classes and maybe a high-end donor really, goes out and buys a couple of good players.
Yeah, look, as far as Michigan goes, the defense is one part of the problem. There are multiple issues here. Unless you are the field goal kicker, there are issues all over the place. And sticking with the defense, you have Wink Martindale's defense that is a big play orchestrated defense. He will sell out and he will blitz and he will try to get home to the quarterback. If you're going up against better offensive lines like Texas, you're not going to get there. And what that does is it leaves holes on the back end that good quarterbacks will pick apart. Elite athletes will pick apart. The defense that they're running, if they continue to run it this way, it's going to be a lot of Don Brown. Remember, Don Brown was great against the mid-card teams in the Big Ten and against the lower-level teams in the Big Ten and when you play your non-conference games. But when you matched up against the Ohio States, it never worked out. You were picked apart. Crossing patterns. You just remember crossing patterns just eating you alive. It's the same thing. It's that same type of philosophy where it's sell out and blitz, but it leaves holes. And if you've got good quarterbacks, it's going to burn you. So you're going to have to figure out to balance that somehow. I don't have a problem with you blitzing all the time. I don't have a problem with you blitzing, period. But you have to be able to put the guys on the back end in a better position to help you win games. In Michigan, Wink Martindale specifically has to figure this out going forward, because that's not going to work. And now offensively, the offense is just putrid. You do not have a quarterback. Sherrone Moore messed up I don't know, believing in Alex Orji or Davis Warren. I don't know. I don't know what he thought he had. And I think the biggest condemnation is Alex Orji's been with this program. I think this is his third year now. You kind of know what he is. You know what he brings to the table, and it is not the ability to throw a football. He is basically a running back. So how you thought and what you thought you had, I don't get it. How you didn't go to the transfer portal and find somebody, or how you haven't been able to recruit somebody to basically take the place of J.J. McCarthy is beyond me. Offensively, when you put him in, you sent a tweet out, and I thought it was well timed. And I had messaged you directly about it. When you put Alex Orji in the game, and I think it was something like 3rd and 3, maybe 4th and 3, I don't know. Their defense was getting home the entire day, but you put Alex Orji in, you know he's running the football. He's not throwing. There's no option there. It's a run. You just tipped your hand, and next thing you know, Texas is bringing the house, and they're collapsing the pocket, and now you're at 4th and 5, 4th and 6. It made no sense. The offensive play call, if Sherrone Moore is your offensive coordinator who was a genius last year, how did you get dumb over the course of a summer? I don't understand it. It makes absolutely no sense to me. If you're telling me that you, as the offensive line coach, right, because he was supposed to be an offensive line guru, that was kind of his transition up the totem pole here. He went from offensive line coach to offensive coordinator. Your offensive line is this bad? I know there's going to be growing pains. They are young. That is a very good team against Texas. But your offensive line is that bad that they were getting bullied all around the field? That's an issue. That's on you. Your quarterback that you thought you had, that's on you. You didn't do anything. Your inability to coach up your quarterback, that's on you. The offense is in complete disarray. We talked about Donovan Edwards. He sucks. Sorry, Michigan fans, Donovan Edwards sucks. I don't know what you thought you had, but he's not that guy. He's a 3rd down back at best. He'll roll out of the backfield. You can hit him with a pass, and if he can get open, cool. He's going to make you pay. He's going to pick up 15 yards. But the guy can't run between the tackles, and he doesn't have that elite burst where he's going to beat somebody coming out of the backfield. It's just not there. And if you want to stick to this ground and pound thumping type of run game, all right, cool. You've got a back that can do it. You need to trust that back to do it. You have 0 wide receivers. Your best player is a tight end. And that guy is going to be good at the next level. But that is really all you have on this team. You don't have a quarterback who can get the tight end the football. So you are in a bit of a world of hurt. Now, this team should get better as the season progresses. But I'm telling you right now, any expectations that you might have for this team, throw them out the window. This is going to be one of those hardball years where before they got good, before the sign stealing, before all the BS, this is going to be one of those years. This will be a team that will be, I don't know, win 8 games, maybe win 9 games, maybe. But they're not going to be pretty. It's going to be rough. You're going to possibly find yourself on the outside of the playoff looking in. This is going to be a very tough year because your offensive line is not developing at the speed that it needs to. Your quarterback sucks. And I'm going to be honest with you. This might be a hot take. You tell me. I don't know. I don't think Sherrone Moore can coach at this level. I think he's in over his head. And let me explain. I know last year in bit phases, he was able to coach this team. Went to Penn State, was able to get a big win by basically running the ball the entire time. Won against Ohio State, was able to win against Maryland, got a win earlier in the year as well. But what you fail to realize is he was the head coach on game day. The head coach's most important job is that Sunday through Friday. It is that install. It is the recruiting. It is the development of players. It is everything that leads up to game day. On game day, you have a game plan. You go in and you execute your game plan. And if you can't execute your game plan, you have to be able to pivot, which I will give Sherrone Moore credit, because in the Penn State game, he pivoted. Good on you. Sherrone Moore, to me, has not done a good enough job recruiting, has not done a good enough job assessing the talent of this roster, has not done a good enough job of establishing a quarterback. We're going into week 3 now, and we still don't really see any progress from the QBs. And now they're talking about Alex Orji possibly getting more playing time. Alex Orji should only be getting playing time if he's a running back. He should only be getting playing time if he is behind your quarterback. That is it. Shouldn't be getting more time under center. Should be getting more time behind the QB. Sherrone Moore, to me, at this time, is in over his head. Should not be the head coach of Michigan. But the fact that you didn't really conduct an actual coaching search is bonkers to me. The fact that you are in this situation where your quarterback play is this abysmal, where you don't have a wideout option, where your offensive line is stagnating in their progression, where you're counting on Wink Martindale to come in and bring this NFL-style offense, which is a reason he's not coaching in the NFL right now. Like, you need to realize that. It is a boom or bust defense, and right now it is busting. To me, he should not be the head coach of Michigan. He is more suited for that offensive coordinator role. He is more suited for the growth and development of players, not doing the install and trying to get everybody else in line and getting this team in positions to win. He is in over his head.
Yeah, look, I'm going to put it this way. I wasn't as terribly disappointed, clearly, because I was rooting for Michigan to get embarrassed. But, putting that aside, objectively speaking, look.
Texas, hold on, real quick. I want to be clear. I thought there was a good chance they were going to get embarrassed. What I seen on Saturday didn't necessarily blow my mind. Right. I was shocked at some of the coaching decisions and the inefficiencies that went along with this team. So just to be clear, what I seen was kind of what I expected. The thing that really blew me away was the different play calls, the tipping of hands on plays, the inability to make adjustments and to get this team in a position to win a football game or to at least be competitive. All I wanted was them to be competitive in a football game. They were not competitive. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, cause I think Michigan fans now have to realize, I think, some subsect of the fan base thought that they could just keep the train rolling and that losing all that talent would just allow for Michigan to keep it rolling. Look, yes, it's concerning that the game shook out that way. It was concerning that the mistakes were made on defense. It wasn't that great. And then your quarterback made a lot of mistakes. And Warren just clearly is a young developing quarterback because, look, you have to kind of assume, look, Sherrone Moore knows, the whole organization knows this is kind of a transition year. It's kind of like, okay, we got to see what the young talent is about. You got this young quarterback. Let's see what he does this year. Clearly, you don't want to go out there and have a game in which you lose by double digits to Texas at home. But I think it's expected. This is kind of a year of transition. The impact, I think, of Sherrone Moore is not going to be this year. It's going to be in his recruiting, what he does after this year to replenish some talent. You have Loveland, but they took him out of the game. You obviously need a better running backs to move forward. But, yeah, I think the biggest issue is going to be moving forward, is Davis Warren going to be able to kind of develop and steady the ship a little bit? This is kind of, like I said, a situation. This is what happens whenever you throw in a young quarterback. There are very few quarterbacks that are just going to come in and dominate right away. He's going to see some things for the first time. It's good for him to get this experience against a world-class caliber team. And because, look, clearly Michigan had no chance of winning because of the fact that I saw it in person. They brought in an NFL offensive line and an NFL defensive line. Listen, and it's straightforward. I saw it there. The NFL world came to Ann Arbor not to evaluate a lot of Michigan players. I'm going to tell you that. They came and looked at the guys that were in the trenches from Texas. They were there to look at Ewers. They were there to look at Isaiah Bond. Maybe they're there clearly to look at the defensive lineman that's really stellar for Michigan. You're there maybe to look at Loveland, but at the same token, the NFL general managers were there to look at Texas because they got world caliber speed. The size difference was tangible from even high up in the press box. You could see the size and the athletic differences between what Texas brought to the table and what Michigan had. And that's just the way it is. So Texas, SEC now, powerhouse, they're going to have their opportunity potentially to win it all. And you have a quarterback in Quinn Ewers who clearly was better than and performed better than what you had. And so for Michigan, it's expected. Yeah, I agree. I think that's where the concern should start to rise, is that I thought that the game plan didn't put Michigan in the best position to try and compete against Texas. And clearly, they tried to control the clock with running. It didn't work out too much. The opportunities that they had to pass the ball, it wasn't in rhythm. And at times, Texas just bullied Michigan. And that's just what happened. But I don't think I think it is a little bit of a hot take to extrapolate that Sherrone Moore is in over his head. I think he understands offense. I think he understands what he's got. And I just think that, to me, the note I took, and I knew that we're going to talk about this, is the fact that I think Michigan's offense was good in the manner in which the talent that was suited with Jim Harbaugh to run it. But I think that Michigan's offense has to evolve. I thought that being that they didn't really take too many deep shots really allowed Texas to collapse and really be able to not let Michigan get a lot of yards after the catch. A lot of down and distance was in the favor of Texas throughout that game. So to me, I just thought that, you know what, if you could get like a trade deadline move in college, you would add a big play receiver. And I think one more big play receiver or a tight end that you can kind of get into the middle of the field and operate a little bit better would open up the offense and I think make it so that Sherrone Moore doesn't have to run the ball into the heart of a defensive line that just was sitting there going, all right, we don't have to do all that much to tackle the running back. So that's just where it is. I just think that, unfortunately for Michigan fans, and most people don't like that, but this is basically a free pass year. I mean, literally.
Let me push back on you a little bit here.
You have to have a free pass. You guys won the national title.
For sure.
And in a transfer portal era where money is flying, Michigan is not just going to load up right away and just drop the money. They just are recouping. They're enjoying the fruits of their labor last year. Now when they see, okay, let's see how we do against Ohio State this year, what it looks like, then they'll decide where the money is going to be allocated to get. But I do think the biggest point you made, which is accurate, is I think you could have bridged the gap and been a little bit more competitive against the big dogs if you would have went with Warren as a guy that develops, but you bring in an experienced quarterback that had a couple years experience that could weather the ship for 1 or 2 years.
This is my thing. It's not like Sherrone Moore wasn't here last year. It's not like he wasn't part of the national championship winning team. It's not like he hasn't had Alex Orji underneath his tutelage. It's not like Davis Warren is brand new to him. It's not like he wasn't aware of the depth with the receivers or the core of the receivers. That's on you. You've been here. It's not like you stepped foot into this and you're like, oh, here's our friend Barry Cupboard. You know, it's not like he walked in and like, oh, the cupboard is bare. We've got to do something else here. You knew what you had. You chose this. This is the path that you chose. You could have gotten involved. There is this thing called the transfer portal. It is what is killing Clemson right now because they do not want to go there. They don't want to address needs there. You can go get guys there, or you can just recruit better and bring your recruits in. And have guys who can pop. It's not how many freshmen. You talked about a freshman with MSU. How many freshmen have popped over the past 2 weeks? There have been a ton. To go out and find a freshman wide receiver who can actually play football, to me, is not a huge stretch. I get quarterbacks sometimes because it's sometimes a little bit different. The quarterback's got to know everything that's going on, and sometimes the install can get a little overwhelming for them. To me, you could have went to the transfer portal. You could have got a better quarterback to put you in a better situation, and you could have recruited a wide receiver better, or just picked one up off the scrap heap there in the transfer portal and put yourself offensively in a better position. And that, to me, is the biggest issue that I'm seeing with this team and with this program right now. It's the coach believing that he had everything figured out. And then when you get to game day, it's putting guys in known spots where the defense is like, okay, cool. We just need to line up right here and we've got this stopped. And you're taking losses. You're not coming up with really anything creative. You don't have guys to really execute your game plan. That's on the head coach, man. That is on Sherrone Moore, and that is why I don't believe he should be at this level at this moment in time. I just feel like he's in over his head.
I do think that clearly there could have been improvements made, but I think that Michigan trusts Davis Warren. That will be the key. That will decide the fate of Sherrone Moore because he trusted the quarterback and he wants to develop him. And I can understand if you go into it and look, this is not how you and I would operate. You and I we would have found the Miami Dolphins owner and said, hey, give us $4 million. We're going to go get a quarterback. But we're going to go steal Archie Manning from Texas and let's just develop him. I look at it and say, okay, if you're Michigan and you're coming off of a national title, you say, okay, we got this young quarterback. We like his makeup. We think that in a year or two, he can be the guy. He's got the right makeup. You can see some talent in Warren. He's got the moxie. He's got the nice arm. He's got the prototypical pocket passer thing going. I think he's very bright, but he's inexperienced. And you say, you know what, in a year that's kind of a transition year where we lost a ton. And it's not just like we lost 2 players. It's not like you lost Aiden Hutchinson and another offensive player. You lost a dozen impactful NFL players that really helped you win a national title. So to me, I know it sucks in sports, but I would say if you're Sherrone Moore and you're looking at it from the Michigan perspective, you're like, let's just throw the guy out there. He'll get all the experience, losing, the toughness. If he's got the grit, he'll be better for it in a year. We'll restock. We'll find a running back. We'll find a receiver. We'll reload the defense. Now that another year under Wink Martindale, he can get his guys. Then I think that I just think it'll be a 1-year blip for Michigan, to be honest. I think they'll see exactly what they need. Now, national title contention, 12, maybe in a couple of years they'll get back to the top 12 where there'll be realistic chance to win it. But I think it's just a transition period for Michigan. And yes, Sherrone Moore does have to improve, but I just think that, you know what? Keep an eye on Davis Warren. He's got something. You can see a little bit of the talent that he's got. It's just he's inexperienced. And this is what it looks like when you got freshman quarterbacks that are developing. Yes, you could have went out and got a more ready guy, and that would have helped. But then all it would have did really, cause in this matchup, because you just can't make up for time. Texas is hungry. Texas is on this is our year deal. So you would have lost by 7. Okay, big deal. You lost. All the guys get experience. It doesn't matter. An L is an L. You hope that the guys that they want to develop move forward. So I get your angst. I get your frustration. You don't want to lose in that fashion. But let's see moving forward how Sherrone Moore handles the loss and how that kind of wakes up the Michigan program because they haven't had to deal with it in over 14 months. So let's see how it progresses. I don't think this guy is falling as bad as you're describing it. But I do think that, yeah, Sherrone Moore did not have his best day on the bright stage when he needed to actually help coach the team to compete at a higher level. So we'll see. I think that Michigan will acclimate and learn and rebound, and we'll see what recruiting looks like as we follow recruiting and as you see how Davis Warren looks as he rebounds from a loss. But in changing gears, talking about the team, man, the Cardiac Cats, I guess we can stop kind of worrying. They're able to bounce back. They showed, look, the thing that Dan Campbell always wanted in a football team, no matter what talent was brought in, is to fight, to be resilient, and to learn that in crunch time, you start punching. And that's what happened. It was a tough, we can talk about playing, I asked Dan Campbell, with the rust that you saw all across the league, maybe does that mean you play starters in the preseason? But in the end, we've talked about it. Week 1 across the league was awful. It was a lot of offense that couldn't connect with the quarterbacks and receivers. You had basically 3 teams that actually were proficient offensively, and the rest was a grind. I mean, I had the red zone on at 1:00, and it was brutal. I mean, the Bengals were outworked by the Patriots. It was crazy. You got clearly the bum teams like the Panthers getting their ass beat. But to me, in talking about the Lions, I was very impressed clearly with the performance of Jameson Williams. I think that's in looking at it, what stood out to me was an individual that knew he had to mature, knew that people were talking about the fact that, hey, this could be going in a different direction. And he wisened up quickly and he took his craft more seriously. And in game 1, when Amon-Ra St. Brown wasn't the guy, you had somebody else. And to see him really embarrass a free agent that the Rams picked up from the Bills and paid money to, hey, that was great. When you can get past your defensive back by 4 yards, then that's great. That Goff connected with him, involved him in the offense. It was a grind, but in the end, if you're a fan of Detroit football, getting the ball in overtime and then just pounding the rock and using your strength to wear down an opponent, it just should make everybody happy. And that's why everybody's really excited, because you were able to win a football game smash mouth style in overtime. And all you got to do is thank the ref, thank Stafford, who called the wrong call on the coin toss. And I just thought that it was a grinded out kind of game. At no point did I think that the Rams were a serious threat to really get away from the Lions. And NFL football, because you realize if you're dealing with that many injuries, it's just really tough to overcome. So 1-0 start, it wasn't pretty, but the biggest thing besides Jameson Williams is you played C football and won the game. That's amazing. That's awesome. We in Detroit are not used to seeing that, where typically when the Lions would play that game under Patricia or under Rod Marinelli or under Steve Mariucci, that was a 7-point loss. To get the overtime win was very exciting, and it lends to the belief that, hey, they played bad and won. Now let's see the development of this football team, because there's so much that they messed up. Oh my God, but the potential's there to really do some things, and it's good to start the year 1-0.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest takeaway that if you're a Lions fan, you should have. This team is one of the few teams that can go out there on a Sunday or a Monday night or even a Thursday night and play a less than stellar game. They don't have to be perfect, and they still are able to get a victory against teams that are playoff contenders or Super Bowl contenders. That was a C- game that they had. It was not good. Offense looked rocky. Like, that's being polite. The offense did not look good. Two of your biggest playmakers, Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown, were non-factors, non-contributors. Your defense, they took step forward from last year, but you provided so many pressures to Matthew Stafford, yet the same thing is kind of being the same bugaboo. You're still not able to get home and get the sacks. So yeah, it's great that you're able to get that pressure on that guy, but at some point you gotta finish and you gotta seal the deal. But the defense was good enough to help carry you when the offense was sluggish and was slow. And then the offense, like you said, end of the game, able to turn it on. And what you seen was grown-ass men, just grown-ass men playing ball, just bullying other guys. It looked like grown men against children. And David Montgomery was a machine that would not be stopped. He would hit you, you would hit him, he'd bounce off you, he'd pick up another 5 yards. The guy just wanted to win. He was out there looking to hurt people, and that is awesome to see. It was like all of a sudden a light switch went on in overtime, and this team was like, okay, cool, we're going to go win the game right here. Watch. And the offensive line was like, guys, get on our back, we're going to carry this. Fantastic to see. Awesome to see. It is good to know, especially this early in the season, that when push comes to shove, you've got that tool in your bag. You know that if it gets to this point, we can lean on this offensive line, which is an incredible strength of this team. And David Montgomery has the ability to get yards after contact, many, many yards after contact, and be able to bully his way down the field. It was awesome to see. It was a great victory. And I do want to touch on J-Mo. J-Mo's a guy who you've come on these airways and you've talked a lot about this year. Preseason, you've basically have led the hype train. Going into our family fantasy draft, I was shocked when you took him, but I knew you knew something when you took him as high as you did, because I felt like you reached, and you didn't just reach by one or 2 rounds. You reached by like 6 rounds. It was kind of crazy. I was like, what the hell is he doing? I was like, he knows something. He is the real deal. This is the guy who is going to be a game changer. He is a dynamic wide receiver, and he looks like he has matured so much from when they drafted him to last year to now. He looks like his head is screwed on straight, and it looks like he is believing all the right things and doing all the right things and taking care of his body the right way and putting himself in positions to be a critical part of this offense and this team. Look, say what you want. I think him seeing Amon-Ra St. Brown get taken care of and get paid the way he did, helped put a lot of things into perspective for him. I think when he came into the league, he thought it was going to be easy. I think that he thought, look, I'm a speedster. I got elite talent. Get me the ball. Just let me do what I got to do. Get out of my way. There's more to it. There's more that you have to do. And I think seeing a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who first guy in, last guy out, does the whole jugs machine thing, has that chip on his shoulder, and carries himself like an ultimate professional, I think that has helped some of that maturation. I know there was a lot of work done with Teddy Bridgewater, but I think seeing how Amon-Ra St. Brown carries himself and then the team reward Amon-Ra St. Brown for everything he's done has given him a bit of a spark, given him a bit of a fire, and I think that's a fantastic thing. He is going to be a game breaker, and he is going to be a game wrecker for this team, and that is awesome. Awesome to see. And I'm pumped. I'm pumped for this team. I'm pumped because what you got to see was you got to see an offense figure it out a little bit late. They struggled. They did not look as crisp as they normally do. I think they'll get some of that figured out. But defensively, you had a team that was able to get to the quarterback. You were playing young quarterbacks or young cornerbacks. At a certain point, you had two rookies starting on your corners. And one of those, Terrion Arnold, played damn near every snap of this game on defense. And I thought he acquitted himself incredibly well. I thought he looked awesome in this game. What was your impression of Terrion Arnold? Yes, a couple of pass interferences, but overall, this is a guy who's going to be put out on an island, and he's going to essentially match up with their number one wide receiver every game. And I thought he did a fantastic job going against one of the best in the league for the past 5 years in Cooper Kupp, and the guy who is looking to take Cooper Kupp's position in Puka Nacua before Puka Nacua went out. I think he held his own, and you have to remember, defensive backs, there's usually a learning curve. There's usually a learning curve with these guys, and they don't really get good until that second year. This guy might not have been flawless in this game, but he looked really freaking good. And my expectation is when they come back out of the bye, he is going to be light years ahead of where he's at right now. What impressed you about him? Because it was awesome to see a young guy like him play as well as he played.
Smooth, yeah. He looked like he was in stride with everybody. Didn't get really overwhelmed with too much. I thought that he was able to rebound if he got, a penalty. And it just looked like he understood the position. He didn't look out of place. He looked like he was fluid. And I just thought, what a great experience to start off against Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. And I just thought that, you know what? The opportunity, I think, is perfect to play alongside Carlton Davis, where you can learn from a veteran who anticipates well and has the opportunity to make plays. And so I just was very impressed with his poise. And it just looks like, you know what? The best way to describe it is he looks like a cornerback. He looks like somebody that understands how to cover. The moment's not too big. And I just think that for a player of that caliber, I just think that if that's the starting point, my goodness, the opportunity to grow, the ability to have somebody that competes that hard. And I just think that, sometimes you just get lucky and blessed to find the right player that has that mindset that, you know what, I'm going to come to the facility, do the work, and then I'm going to go back to the hotel room and I'm going to do more work. And then I'm going to study and I'm going to study some more. And then I'm going to call up my friends and say, hey, what'd you think about this? And then at nighttime, he might watch 1 half-hour show of something, do a TikTok, and then go back to watching film. And I think that's what you need. I think he's got the factor of, and that's what Jameson Williams I think now has too, which is when you're on a team with the expectation to win the Super Bowl, they didn't bring you here to fuck around. They brought you here to do the job. And he's a guy that takes it seriously. And I just think that, everybody should credit Nick Saban all the time for the greatness that is college football, for the greatness that he brought to Michigan State for the time period, for the greatness that he brought to Alabama, and for his ability to teach defense.
For the greatness that he's brought to the Detroit Lions. Look at how many dudes from Alabama are on this squad, man.
Exactly.
I was just thinking before you started talking about Nick Saban, I'm like, Jesus, you got Brian Branch, you got Terry Arnold, J-Mo. There's a ton of dudes on this roster over the course of the last, 2, 3, 4 years, straight up from Alabama. And Alabama was a NFL producing program. Like, these dudes came in ready to ball because Nick Saban was like, look, this is what it is at the next level. And he taught these dudes. That it's going to be interesting to see what Alabama becomes after Nick Saban.
Yeah, and look, to be honest, you look at what Alabama does, the money's there. I think they're going to keep it. I don't think they're going to be perennial playoff winners, but they'll be there. I would be surprised if there are years where they're not in the top 12. That'll be the devastating thing. So for Jameson Williams, you saw the fact that, look, and I think that people are misconstruing what people said. I don't think many people said he was going to be a bust, but many people said, hey, if he doesn't mature, if he stays on this course, there's going to be a problem, and the Detroit Lions will eliminate that problem pretty quickly. So I think that wisens you up. And now he's 23. He understands this is the mission, and the Lions were patient enough to be able to handle everything and weather the storm, and he's got a perfect role model in Amon-Ra St. Brown. So this is the thing. He's the real deal with the talent, and that's the only thing that us reporters and others that were critiquing him said is, you've got the talent, now you've got to put in the work. And putting in the work is not 8 hours. Putting in the work is 14 hours. It's making it a commitment that, hey, I got the extra 2 hours, watch film. I got the extra 2 hours, hey, look up routes, talk to Goff, ask questions, get in the ear of the offensive coordinator. Tell him you want this route this way for you. Know where you got to be. And that's where it was, is that there were opportunities that they saw against the Rams defense that really showcased and they got him involved early with the speed and things like that. But on the other side, I don't think it's really too concerning because I basically predicted it. And that's what I asked Amon-Ra St. Brown is during the week, I asked him, I said, do you think you're going to get doubled? I mean, you're the guy now. So clearly knowing that I follow defense, you understand in the Bill Belichick model of defense is when you have a guy that's the guy, you take him out of the game. And I think that's what the Rams did. They were able to basically combine the fact that the Lions, I think, knew that. They just said, okay, what are the Rams going to do? And that's what the Lions are really smart at. Ben Johnson knew, like, okay, they're probably going to take away Amon-Ra. So that leaves us with David and J-Mo to carry the load. And I don't think it's a big deal that Amon-Ra St. Brown did not do much. If it's a pattern, if it lingers, I think this is the next challenge for Amon-Ra is now you're the guy. You're the guy that the clicker is being looked at by these defensive coordinators and these secondary coaches. They're like, okay, this guy will not hurt us. So now you got to also get creative with Amon-Ra. Maybe some handoffs, some end arounds, some ways to use him as well. But he'll get his because not every defense has the caliber of minds that can stop him. So he'll get his. Don't worry about it. But this is the next challenge for a great player like Amon-Ra is now that you're the factor and it's week one, you're learning again the timing and everything that goes on in the passing game, which was abysmal across the whole league. But I'm not concerned at all about Amon-Ra St. Brown.
He had a pretty good day.
Yeah, he was pretty good. But I thought that across the board, I think that an overreaction is to be worried about Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he'll be fine. I do think that there'll be days where J-Mo gets looked at or the way in which defenses are approached. And that's what he told me. His answer to me was, yeah, I expect some things, but to be honest, it doesn't faze us at all. Because if I go down or if I don't have productivity, we know that Sam, J-Mo, Gibbs, Montgomery, Raymond, and now maybe Patrick, if he comes up this week, the Lions are pretty much in a spot where they just got to execute. And to be honest, you don't even have to worry about the passing game. If you shore up the offensive line at the trade deadline with an experienced veteran, because they just said in overtime, all right, we're going to maul you. And they were getting 5-6 yards a clip, and they just decided. And early in the game, you saw that they ran the ball on 7 consecutive plays with some success. So if the passing game doesn't work, you pound the rock, and that should work a lot of times in the regular season. But the question mark will be, can you pound the rock against the Chiefs? If you want to look globally, can you pound the rock against the Chiefs? That's going to be fucking crazy to try because they have their defense is better. And that's what I took away from the rest of the league was, fuck, the Chiefs are still fucking for real, and they're the scary team to beat moving forward. But I do think that the game that the Lions had played well, and I'm thankful that's the starting point moving forward.
Yeah, look, as far as Amon-Ra St. Brown goes, I think you're right. I think you put it in a way where it should make sense to Lions fans. It's one game. Don't worry about it. Him and Sam Laporta are going to get theirs. It's one of those things where if it becomes a trend, if we get to the bye week and Amon-Ra St. Brown is still having these types of issues, then we've got something to talk about, and then we've got some concerns. But as of right now, this is the new challenge for him. This guy is always looking for something to improve on, something to develop on. He's always looking for a reason to try to get better. Well, here's your reason. They're now going to bracket you. They're going to double and triple team you. You now need to figure out a way to get separation, and you need to figure out ways to help this team win games and get the ball in your hands, because I've got you on a fantasy roster. So figure it out. You and Sam Laporta both. So get it figured out, boys. But, you know, just to kind of highlight, probably Amon-Ra St. Brown's biggest play in this game. I think it's late in the fourth quarter. He's running a bit of an inside slant. It's a seam route, and he slips out of his break, and he's going down, and he hits the turf, and just as the ball is getting there, all of a sudden you just see a paw come up, just a mitt, and it just smacks the ball down. That ball was going to be intercepted, or there was a good chance that ball was going to be intercepted, and the game would have been over right there. Him having the wherewithal and the mindset and just knowing, these are things that elite players have that sometimes just go unnoticed by the naked eye. This is a guy who slipped for whatever reason, goes to the turf, and just as the ball is getting there, he has the mindset and the knowledge and, like I said, the wherewithal to be able to get the hand up, deflect the pass, and keep things moving for this team and not allow them to be put in a bad spot with a bad interception or a mistimed throw or something that his slip could have correlated in hurting the team. That was a guy who really took a negative and turned it into a positive, and that is awesome to see. The fact that he was still engaged in the game, even though he wasn't getting the targets, wasn't getting the reps. Thought that was awesome to see. Look, now we've got to turn our attentions to a very big week here. We talked about Baker Mayfield a little bit having a good week last week. I think he had 4 touchdowns and played out of his mind. Him and Mike Evans were on the same page, and that is scary because those guys are coming in. I find it a little bit interesting that our first round playoff team and our second round playoff team are traveling back here to Ford Field. So now the Lions have to take care of business against the Bucs, who are 1-0, who looked really good opening week. Jared Goff did not look as good as Baker Mayfield did. Any concerns with the Lions, and more specifically with Jared Goff, heading into week 2 against the Tampa Bay Bucs?
Concern level is low, mild. I just think that this football team, look, you potentially now, the dynamic's going to be different. You might get DJ Reader back. Mm-hmm. They decided to waive Chris Smith, who they signed to the active roster over the weekend, so that kind of signals you have an open spot. That probably will. He was
an offensive lineman, right?
Defensive lineman. Yeah, and so what that leads to is that, okay, there's an open spot, and you know that's probably going to go to Tim Patrick or a tight end. So it's probably going to go to an offensive weapon. Mm-hmm. So, and look, I just think that, Dan Campbell and Jared Goff said it earlier in the week. What you saw that they struggled at was on third down, their execution wasn't that great. The play calls and the execution wasn't as crisp as it needs to be to extend drives. So I think that once you get on the favorable side of down and distance, you realize too, the Rams defensive front was pretty good. Kobe Turner and Frisk and Jared Verse, that was fucking legit, bro. That was crazy to see the talent that Frisk and Jared Verse have, what they're going to bring to the table in a couple years. My God. But look, it's going to be the same way. I think that you want to limit. You're going to want to have to, I know people were a little bit concerned the sack totals weren't there. Yes, it's always good to get home a little bit more. But yeah, if you can pressure the quarterback every other time he drops back, they'll be fine. I think Baker Mayfield will turn the ball over at the key time. I think it'll be close game, touchdown win again for the Detroit Lions. I think that the offense, once it gets into gear, this week with St. Brown wanting to prove himself, with Gibbs getting a little bit more, and we didn't even talk about it, Sam Laporta was quiet. Sam Laporta this game, I think, is going to acclimate himself pretty well. We'll get fantasy owners off his back a little bit for having a better performance. So I'm not worried too much about the Bucs. Now, if you make mistakes, if it's sloppy, if you play the same level of game that you played week 1, you're getting beat. But I do think the Lions are better, and the secret weapon, Carlton Davis, is telling all the secrets to Terrion Arnold and Rake Straw and Amik Robinson. And look, the highlight to me outside of David Montgomery was Brian Branch. Man, the man was flying all over the field, got over 70 defensive snaps. The man should have had the interception pick 6 off of Stafford. And look, he didn't even play his best game. He had some missed tackles, slid, had a slip when he shouldn't have. He's already walked into Dan Campbell's office and was like, I'm not missing those tackles ever again. And the man is legit crazy. And man, what a transition to safety. So I think big things. Yeah, Mike Evans is going to get his. I think fantasy owners will be happy. I think his targets will be high. But at the same token, I think that what this Lions football team does is they're going to be pretty, they're going to allow teams, for the most part, that are solid offensively. They'll probably be able to get to the 20. But that's when the Lions are going to operate like magicians, and they're going to limit teams to more field goals than touchdowns. It's going to be tough to score touchdowns, and I think that 20-point average, I think when their defense is playing good, you're looking at a defense that probably gives up between 17 and 23 points. And all you got to do then is your offense has got to do what it's supposed to do, and that's the key to a Super Bowl team. And guys, that's what we're going to do here every week. We're going to look at it from the perspective of this is a Super Bowl caliber team. So, you can't say the defensive line played bad, but they can play better. And that's the attitude that Dan Campbell has, and that's the attitude we're going to have here at the podcast. We're not going to clap for a 1-0 team because clearly, based on what you saw, the Chiefs look legit. They got a speedster now that can expose your defense. And you look across the league, Houston is going to be hungrier after a disappointing loss. And you look at it from the perspective of how did you compare to the other caliber teams? The 49ers are legit again, and they lose McCaffrey, and the next guy up can do what he's got to do. So you got to improve. You got to handle business. You got to play better, but they will. And it's exciting because we're literally watching one of the top 5 teams in the league, and we can actually watch them from the perspective of how do they improve? What do they need to on an intricate level while they get wins? It's the best time to be a Lions fan. That's why you tune into Detroit Sports Podcast. Check out our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast as everybody is excited. What's your optimism level? What's your score prediction for the game?
I think the Lions win. I think the addition of DJ Reader is going to cause fits for that Tampa Bay offensive line. I think the offense figures it out. I think you'll see Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta be much more involved and have much bigger games. I think the offense as a whole takes a step forward. I think the defense gets a big boost with DJ Reader coming back. Look, Mike Evans is going to have a good game. Chris Godwin will probably have a good game. I think Baker Mayfield will have a pretty good game, but I think there's going to be a critical turnover at some point from that Tampa Bay offense, whether it's a fumble or whether it's a Baker Mayfield interception. So I do see the Lions taking advantage. I see the Lions capitalizing. I see the Lions going into week 3, 2-0. I think the Lions win this game. We will say, I think it's a big offensive output. I think it's going to be 31-24.
Nice. I like it. I think it's going to be a little bit more defensive. Tampa Bay can handle business.
Tampa Bay's got a good defense.
Yeah, so I'm going to say 27-20. Detroit Lions pull away in the fourth quarter. Everything is back to normal. St. Brown touchdown. Touchdown scores will be St. Brown and Laporta, and the running game will set the tone, and everything will go smoothly. So it's a fun time. And cause all you can say is the Detroit Lions have gotten to the level, and we'll end with this quick nugget. They've gotten to the level that the Today Show wanted to feature the dads of the offensive line. And it go to the Lions Twitter page. They rolled it out yesterday, the feature that they did, that these dads are soft-spoken off the field, but on the field, they're maulers. And I think you'll relate to that on a nice level. And the Detroit Lions are America's darlings. Over 22 million people saw Sunday Night Football, which was a higher rating than it did last year. So America likes to watch competitive, smart football. Dan Campbell starring in commercials now. is somebody that legitimately can be an entertainer. I fully expect that if, he gets tired after 10 years in his 50s, he will sit at a desk at ESPN and he'll talk football for 20 years. I think he's got that in him, if he wants to, because look, right now he's in the early parts of his career, still in his 40s, but that shit's a grind. But he's got that hunger, and everybody's talking about Dan Campbell, but he's natural. He's great at what he does. The commercials were great. Right now things are smooth around the Lions, and that's all you could ask for is development. You just ask for continued health, and you hope that this football team can meet expectations and give us a game or two where you just blow out the opponent. Like, come on. Like, overtime against the Rams, my goodness. The crowd there was getting a little bit antsy, but they did turn it around. And I think that the opportunity to just get better is there, and everything's going to be smooth for the Detroit Lions. But make sure you follow along. Detroit Sports Podcast. We're there every day asking questions, being quality control, as some would say, for the Detroit Lions. So I'm excited. Follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Everything that you want to know about the Lions is available there, interactive. You can weigh in on all the tweets, all the information, the podcast, the videos, everything that you see there, you can interact with. And make sure you visit Lions on SI, as that's the website that also features highlights, articles, and things of that nature. So, cuz I can't wait to break down college football. It was great to pay attention to. NFL football is always great, but I'm going to say this. I'm fully invested in the red zone, man. That shit was awesome. It's great because you play fantasy football. I will say that I had the 14th pick in our league, and I started off, I know you guys care, so that's why I'm going to report every week exactly what goes on with my fantasy team, because I know you guys are invested. I'm 1-0. I whipped your brother-in-law's ass on a level that's unknown to mankind. It was great. I loved it.
170 points. Crazy. But you had like 6 guys go off. It was nuts.
It was crazy. It was crazy to see. So I'm excited for that. Highlighted by C.J. Stroud and Jameson Williams and all the good stuff that went down. I was very excited. So we'll see how it progresses moving forward. I'm 1-0. Where are you at?
With fantasy?
Yeah. What'd you do?
I'm 1-0. I eked out a win. It wasn't very good. Okay. Look, I'm having some tight end and quarterback issues. So running backs are strong, wide receivers are good. I've got to do some tweaking with my QBs and my tight ends. So we'll see what happens going forward.
You don't seem too excited. That's not good. Yeah, I dropped 100.
It's early. It's week 1. Look, I ended up with wins in all of my leagues.
That's good.
So we're doing okay. I'm just not poleaxing people like you with 170-point wins. So it's something along the lines of like 100 or 120 points. So, I got some work to do if I'm going to compete with you. This might be the year you win a championship.
Maybe this is the year. I got a hole at running back, but it's pretty good. It's a good start.
We can make a trade.
Maybe we'll potentially look at it. For the Jock, Adam Straczynski, I'm the Doc, John Macaroon. This has been Doc and Jock, your weekly staple, breaking down Detroit sports. I can't wait for next week's episode.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.